All right, welcome to Lesson 7, Radio Communication Procedures, where we'll be reviewing aviation language and traffic advisory practices. Now, the introduction to aviation radio procedures involves, of course, radio communications, which are an important aspect for the safe operation of aircraft in the national airspace system. And although remote pilots are not expected to communicate over radio frequencies, and in fact it's actually also illegal unless you have the proper licensing, it is important for the remote pilot to understand aviation language and the different conversations they may encounter if the remote pilot is using a VHF radio to aid them in situational awareness during a flight operation. Now, although much of the information provided within this lesson is geared toward manned aircraft pilots, the remote pilot needs to understand the unique way information is exchanged within the NAS. Now, understanding proper radio phraseology and procedures contribute to a pilot's ability to operate safely and efficiently in the airspace system. The pilot or controller glossary contained in the Aeronautical Information Manual, AIM, assists a pilot in understanding aviation radio terminology, which, by the way, was created in 1917 by the International Civil Aviation Organization, the ICAO. And this phonic alphabet is used by pilots and air traffic control in all radio communications to identify their aircraft today. Now, it's essential that all pilots be alert and scan for other traffic while conducting a flight operation, and this is particularly important since other aircraft may not have communication capability, or in some cases, pilots may not communicate their presence or intentions when operating to or out of a non-towered airport. When a manned aircraft is inbound to a non-towered airport, the standard operating practice is for the pilot to broadcast in the blind. That's quote-unquote a broadcast in the blind when they are 10 miles from the airport. Remember that when that may appear on the exam. It is essential that all radio-equipped aircraft transmit and receive on a common frequency, and that remote pilots monitor other aircraft identified for the purpose of airport advisories. The three-way for manned pilots to communicate their intention and obtain airport or traffic information when operating at an airport that does not have an operating control tower are by communicating with Flight Service Station, FSS, by communicating with a Unicom operator, and by making a self-announce broadcast. And Myrtle Beach International Airport has a part-time control tower, so the control tower's frequency is 128.45. That's the CT for control tower. Remember that a few lessons back. It also serves as the CTAF frequency, which is the C in the little blue circle. It serves as the CTAF frequency when the tower is closed. And Myrtle Beach also has a Unicom frequency of 122.95 as well. Now, when there's a non-towered airport and Unicom isn't available, a pilot will use 122.9 frequency to communicate. The Common Traffic Advisory Frequency, CTAF, is a frequency designed for the purpose of carrying out airport advisory practices while operating to or from an airport without an operating control tower. The CTAF may be a Unicom, Multicom, FSS, or tower frequency and is identified in appropriate aeronautical publications. A Multicom frequency of 122.9 will be used again at an airport that does not have a FSS or Unicom. Now, most non-towered airports will have a Unicom frequency, which is usually 122.8. However, remote pilots should always check the chart supplements US or aeronautical sectional charts for the correct frequencies, as the FAA has added many new frequencies, and these frequencies can change and vary when there are a large number of non-towered airports in the area. Regarding recommended traffic practices, so to Initial a call, a radio call from a manned pilot. A manned pilot will include the position of the aircraft in relation to north, south, east, or west from the airport. They'll announce with their name, such as Town and Country Traffic, if that was the name of the airport. Town and Country Traffic, Cessna 940 Bravo Foxtrot, 10 miles south inbound for landing, and then they end it again, Town and Country Traffic. The pilot of the manned aircraft will state the airport's name twice, at the beginning of the broadcast and again at the end of the broadcast, to allow others who are on the frequency to confirm where the aircraft is going. The term traffic is used when broadcasting at an airport without a control tower, broadcasting to other aircraft traffic, or small unmanned aircraft operators that may be listening. Now, when a pilot is calling a given facility, air traffic control or FSS specialist within a facility, the pilot will use the following format. So they'll use the name of the facility, the airport being called, then the aircraft identification, the aircraft's operating position, the type of message, the word over if required. So here's some examples. New York Radio, Lima 311 Echo. Or Columbia Ground, Cessna 3160 Foxtrot. IFR Memphis. We'll be explaining why a pilot would use radio versus ground or center in the next slide, but we'll also have all of this information for you to print out. You will not have to memorize all of it, but you will need to become familiar with it. There may be some questions on the final exam that we'll ask, and we'll have it in some of our sample questions and answers at the end of this lesson, where you would use November, for example, and the question may have, the incorrect question may have Nancy. So you'll want to become a little bit familiar with these and this phraseology. So let's review some of this information. So when a pilot to announce to air traffic control, the pilot will never use mean sea level or AGL to indicate the altitude, but rather they'll just state the number. The aircraft call signs and identifications are never abbreviated either. So figures indicating hundreds and thousands in round number. As for ceiling heights and upper wind levels up to 9,900 must be spoken in accordance with the following verbiage. So 500 would be 500. 4,500 would be as 4,500, not 4,500. And then numbers above 9,900 will be spoken by separating the digits preceding the word thousand. So 10,000 is 10,000, and then 13,500 is 13,500. Transmitting airway or jet route numbers would be as follows. V12 would be Victor 12. And J533, Juliet 533. Numbers transmitted by pronouncing each digit. So you wouldn't say 10, you'd say 10. And 122.1 would be 122.1. So ICAO procedures require the decimal point to be spoken as decimal. The FAA will honor such usage by military aircraft and all other aircraft required to use ICAO procedures. Altitudes and flight levels. Up to, but not including 18,000 feet MSL, and remember that is Class A airspace. State the separate digits of the thousandths plus the hundredths, if appropriate. So as similarly discussed, 12,000 becomes 2,000, and 12,500 would be 2,500. And at above 18,000 feet, the flight level would be followed by separate digits of the flight. So 190 would be flight level 190, and 275 would be flight level 275. The 3 digits of bearing, course, heading, or wind direction should always be magnetic. So the word true must be added when it applies. So magnetic course 005 would be 005. But if it's a true course of 005, it would be 050 true. And so forth on down. Again, this will be available to print out, so you can review this and get a little more familiar with it. There'll be several questions regarding this. There won't be a whole lot on the final exam. Now, speeds, the separate digits of the speed followed by the word knots, except controllers may omit the word knots when using speed adjustment procedures. So if, for example, reduce or increase speed to 250, speed 250 might be 250 knots, or just might be 250. Separate digits for a Mach number preceded by Mach number 1.5, Mach 1.5, and so forth. The FAA uses a coordinated universal time, of course, for UTC or Zulu for all operations. The word local or the time zone equivalent must be used to denote local when local time is given during radio and telephone communication. So the term Zulu may be used to denote UTC. So it may state 0920 UTZ, 0920 0120 Pacific. Here we have a list of call signs that a remote pilot who may be monitoring local radio traffic, depending on the call sign used, would be good to know. It would inform the remote pilot if an aircraft was on approach to land at an airport, or perhaps just contacting tower, preparing before takeoff, or perhaps on the taxiway. As we previously discussed, manned pilots might state New York radio, Mooney 311 Charlie Echo, and so forth. And incidentally, a great way to listen to pilots and air traffic, if you're not familiar with this, I grew up next to a commercial airport, so when I was a kid, we always tuned in to the VHF radio. Back then, you could pick it up pretty easy on a regular little handheld transistor. But a great way you can still listen to it today is by going to a website, and this won't be on the exam. We just find it a great way if you're not familiar with any phraseology used by pilots. You can go to this website, liveatc.net, and dial in some airports. They don't have every airport, but they have almost every airport. And you can dial in some busy airports throughout the nation and listen to the flight services. It's a pretty neat thing to listen to. And so here we have on the right, this graph shows the facility type. So if it's an airport, it'll be a Unicom. They would be using Unicom. If they're calling into FAA flight service station, it would be radio. And if they were calling into airport air traffic control tower, it would be tower. Or ground control tower, it would be ground. And so that's where they use that phraseology, such as Columbia ground, Cessna 3160 Foxtrot. So they're stating Columbia ground. So just review those at your leisure and just become a little more familiar with them. So all aircraft that are registered in the United States will have a unique registration number, or an N number. So for example, it may be N123AB, and that would be pronounced using the phonic alphabet. November 123 Alpha Bravo. And in most cases, November might be replaced with the aircraft's manufacturer's name or make, and in some cases the type of the aircraft or model. So usually when the aircraft is a light general aviation aircraft, the manufacturer's name will be used, such as and 123 Alpha Bravo would be perhaps Cessna 172. The call sign would be Cessna, the make of the airplane, 123 Alpha Bravo. So it might be a C. And that's what those numbers are on the tails, or you may see on smaller aircraft. If the aircraft is a heavier aircraft, such as a turboprop, the aircraft's model will be used in the call sign. So Cessna Citation, the call sign would be stated as Citation 123 Alpha Bravo. So the following are similar questions that may appear on the knowledge exam, just to kind of define it again. So Cessna Niner 6 Bravo Whiskey November would be correct, whereas Whiskey Nancy would be incorrect. For safety reasons, a remote pilot must always scan the area where they are operating their small unmanned aircraft. And obviously this is especially important if you're flying an operation near an airport. So while it is good operating procedures for manned aircraft to make radio broadcasts in the vicinity of a non-towered airport, by regulation it is not mandatory. So for this reason, a remote pilot must always look and scan for other aircraft in the area, and it's just recommended to get a radio for an extra layer of safety and situational awareness. All right, congratulations. Short lesson. So the correct method of stating 4,500 feet MSL to air traffic control is 4,500. So that's why I deliberately said 4,500 feet. The proper phraseology for initial contact with McAllister Flight Service while flying your plane, a Hawk N666CB. So would it be McAllister Flight Service Station, Hawk 666, Charlie Bravo, etc. Take a second to look at that. If you want to pause the video and look at that, the proper phraseology for initial contact with flight service. Correct answer, flight service is radio. I know you didn't have a lot of time to really review these, the PDFs or print it out, and if you did, fantastic. But if not, again, you can come back and re-review these anytime. An inbound aircraft pilot should communicate with the FSS on the Common Traffic Frequency Advisory Frequency CTAF. Common Traffic Advisory Frequency CTAF. Remember when that was 10 miles out? That question may be on your exam, as well as the one above McAllister. What multicom frequency is used at a non-towered airport when Unicom isn't available? Remember that? The answer is 122.9. When flying Hawk N666CB, the proper phraseology for initial contact with Whitted Air Traffic Control Tower. Remember that? Tower, we know that one. Would they say 666? No. And that's the correct answer. Whitted Tower, Hawk 666, etc. If Dallas Executive Tower is not in operation, which CTAF frequency should be used to monitor airport traffic? And if you need to look at that chart, feel free to pause it and print it out or take a look at it, pull up your PDF. If Dallas Executive Tower is not in operation, the CTAF frequency that should be used as shown is 127.25. The correct phonetic for R08TN is Romeo, we know what that's. Romeo, 0, 8, Tango, and November. The definition of CTAF. The frequency a pilot tunes into to get information from aeronautical advisory stations. Standard frequency at the airport of a towered airports used in the U.S. It is air-to-air communication system for pilots to communicate with each other. Which of the following is proper aviation language? Remember that? 13,500. All right. Moving on. Congrats. Awesome job. Next chapter will pertain to aircraft loading, center of gravity, stalls, and basic SUAS aerodynamics. You're doing great.